This Voice of San Diego podcast is sponsored in part by the Downtown San Diego Partnership. As a nonprofit news organization, Voice of San Diego depends on our members, foundations, and sponsors like the Downtown Partnership. We are very grateful for all of our donors, and we will recognize their support during the show. Join the Downtown San Diego Partnership on Saturday, April 21st for East Village Sessions, a popular free workout event held on the streets of downtown San Diego. This one-day fitness event offers various workouts that will start your weekend off right. Join the Downtown Partnership at 8th Avenue and J Street for one class, or stay for all 5. Visit downtownsandiego.org for details and to register today. And if you like Voice of San Diego's work and want to become a sponsor, contact us at development@voiceofsandiego.org.
Welcome to the Voice of San Diego podcast, where we make sense of local politics, schools, housing, public safety, the civic issues that impact the life of a San Diego resident. We break it down so you can understand it and make educated decisions.
Everything that goes into our investigative reporting, the journalists, public records requests, the data crunching, and this very show depends on the support of people like you because we're a nonprofit news organization. Enjoy the show.
Okay, welcome to those of you listening on News Radio 600 Kogo. My name is Scott Lewis. I'm here with my friend, Andrew Keats.
What's up, buddy?
What's up, my man? And Sarah Libby.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
So I just raced over here from moderating a debate of the county supervisor candidates, all 5 of them. This is the first one I've done with all 5. Omar Passons, Ken Marlborough, Nathan Fletcher, Lori Saldana, and Bonnie Dumanis.
Forum, not a debate.
I don't understand the difference.
Yeah, I know. There's no difference.
There was even some interaction. It was, whatever. But yes, it was a good discussion about opportunity. There's like 60,000 kids in this county who aren't either working or in school right now, like youth between 18 and 25. It was the whole conversation about them, sort of. Good one. I went up to Bonnie Dumanis.
Tell us everything.
Judge Dumanis.
Right.
Went up to her afterward, and I said, "Are you gonna come on the podcast? Because we've had all the other ones. Are you gonna come?" I don't know. She says. I said, it'll be fun. Let's do this. It would be fun. Let's get it all out there. And she said, "Oh yeah, it would be fun." And it was it's not a sincere moment.
That's good.
So it's a no then.
It's not an actual no. She says I have to keep working with her team.
Yeah, no.
Feels like it's a
no.
Yeah, on the yes no spectrum, we're really far toward the no.
I can tell you, it doesn't sound like a yes.
It doesn't sound like a yes. I'm going to keep working on it. You should though send her campaign. Go to the Judge Bonnie Dumanis page. And find the contact thing. Send her a note. Say, go to the Voice of San Diego podcast. That's all you have to do. Go to the VOSD podcast. CC us if you want. Go to her site and lobby her to come on. We've got a lot to talk about. It would be a productive conversation.
We do have a lot to talk about.
A lot of things.
A lot of things we want to ask, but a lot of things she could throw some stuff at us. Let's get a deal hammered out. All right, so we wanted to start first with, first of all, let's remember that at the end of the show, or the second half, is Jen Campbell. She's running for city council.
District 2,
Democrat. Brian Pease is running that race. We had Jordan Bean on. We had the incumbent Lori Zaff. And so this rounds that out, I think. Mm-hmm. So good conversation, interesting person, a lot of history I didn't know about her. All right, we wanted to start with this. We could do a regular segment just featuring things other cities are doing that we are envious about. In LA, we heard this news this week. They are really building stuff there.
They are building things that move people around.
The Olympics are focused the mind, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
I remember in Utah, the Olympics, we got a whole new transit system because of the Olympics.
Even before that, though, I mean, they could make an argument that they're like the most transit friendly city of the decade.
Yeah.
Given how much they've expanded the metro.
They built a
I would
subway,
love
right?
to hear an argument that they are not.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they obviously got a lot of work to do, a lot of traffic still, but as far as investments in it, they're going big.
Mm-hmm.
So we got this news this week. The Los Angeles City Council approved a $4.9 billion contract to design, build, operate, and maintain an elevated train that will whisk passengers. This is from the LA Times, so that's their verb, whisk passengers in and out. What it defines a whisk? Is that
Move quickly.
Breezy.
like the hair, like it actually moves your hair? Is that a whisk?
Yeah.
All right.
That happens when a subway leaves a platform.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll connect LAX's central terminal to a ground transportation hub and a station on the Metro Crenshaw line. In other words, they're going to seamlessly connect their mass transit system to the airport. Imagine that.
What a world.
Now, I know, Andy, I can hear you screaming in your head, you can already take the bus and it's really convenient. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. The 928 or what is it? The
927. And we're so close. The airport is so close.
Yeah.
It's very close here.
It is awkward that the trolley is so close and it doesn't seamlessly connect.
That's one way to look at it. The other way is that like the need is less because it is so close. Whereas in other cities, airports are often very removed from the city center.
All right. Are you done defending MTS?
No one ever wants to say that, and it's
all right.
a perfectly reasonable point that can be part of the conversation as well.
The reason that we are interested in this, though, is that there's this part in this LA Times story about $3.8 billion of the costs to build and run the project will come from airport revenues. The Linksys consortium will issue tax bonds for the rest. In other words, airport revenues are going to be spent on in what can be considered mass transit for the whole area.
Yeah. Non-exact airport spaces.
And the reason that we find that interesting is because that goes right to our debate right now about the airport and whether it should be managed by the Port of San Diego. Right now it's managed by the Airport Authority.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a proposal now on the table by the Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher to move it under the port, as we've reported.
And so when I wrote this story, we took this to be like a pretty shocking development in local public affairs, like a big deal.
A flyer. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we put out a story right away.
Yeah.
I got it up as quick as we could.
Yeah.
In the time since, like basically no one else has covered it.
Yeah. and
until this week, luckily. But
not just not covered it, but like other people, elected officials and whatnot, seem to not care all that much.
Not be,
Yeah.
or at least not saying anything publicly.
Right.
Yeah.
except this week, there came out a story from CityBeat. John Lamb wrote, and he asked that question to Todd Gloria. What's everybody talking about this? And Todd Gloria, the Assemblyman, colleague of Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher, says, I'm surprised by the relative silence to date from likely opponents and those who back the creation of the airport authority.
Okay. So they've been holding their tongue, which is true.
Which is very interesting.
Yeah. I got a quote from Mark Cafferty a couple weeks ago saying basically that like there are few agencies in town that are more of a pleasure to work with than the airport authority.
Yeah.
Which is not, I mean, it's got a clear indication of where he stands on this, but it's not like fire and brimstone about what a bad idea this is.
Right. And then in that same story, this is the most interesting one. Ron Roberts was asked about this issue, or no, he was at SANDAG, the San Diego Association of Governments meeting, and he, according to Lamb, flayed airport officials over their foot dragging on traffic improvements needed outside the airport's footprint. And this ties into what we were talking about with LAX. This is part of the argument is that the airport needs to do more around the airport to connect people to it. And he said foot dragging and traffic improvements along Harbor Drive and the roads leading to Little Italy. He says, quote, this is Ron Roberts, Grape Street, Hawthorne Street, and Laurel Street are an absolute disaster. And nobody wants to pay for anything. Nobody has focused on how we do a better job. And he said, quote, this is Ron Roberts. It seems like a big deal to me. He says, maybe it will be a good thing for the port to take over the airport authority. We're not getting solutions, not even small solutions for the problem that's there.
One interesting thing, I mean, obviously him agreeing with somebody like Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher is interesting on its own. But if you look at his comments, I mean, the LA effort is all about like moving people efficiently in and out of the airport. And he seems to be saying like the airport is responsible for making sure traffic in the area is better, which is not quite the same thing.
No, their airport is, if they do expand the Terminal 1 or change the Terminal 1, then they have to do an environmental impact report about the impacts of Harbor Drive. And so that's what they respond to, say, like, we're already doing that. But yeah, they are interpreting it, Roberts and them are interpreting it as an improvement to the road infrastructure. And Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher and others are saying there could be a whole mass transit discussion
and road infrastructure.
Right.
They're very interested in the traffic on Harbor Drive too.
And they're arguing that the port maybe could make that decision better. So we had already asked April Bowling, the chairwoman of the Airport Authority, about that law, and she had said something about that basically this was MTS's job. And so that's a fundamental disagreement right there.
Well, actually, she more specifically, she said that the message that they have received from MTS is that it isn't possible
to connect the trolley,
to move the trolley closer.
Right.
That it is the physical limitations are such that it can't be done.
Right.
Not like it's a matter of do we want to, who's going to pay for it, who's going to be responsible for this. Like, you can't do it is what the message she has received.
I got to bet $100 says, like, if this gets boiled down into like political terms, it's only trolley to the airport. None of the other things come like surface up. It only becomes that.
I think, well, that would be a smart political move by the people who want to do this.
Yeah.
It's like, let's say this were on a ballot measure. Like, do you want and you're collecting signatures?
Yeah, that's all.
Do you want trolley to the airport signature? Like, that gets everyone to stop, right?
Yeah. We know your feelings about that, though.
It's not that I don't think it's a good idea. I do. It would be better than the status quo. It's definitely. It's just we've got a litany of transit and transportation related problems, and if we were going to list all of those, this wouldn't be my biggest priority.
Be like 12th.
I don't know if it'd go that far down, but
okay.
But let's say it's $5 billion like the LAX proposal. There are other ways I'd prefer we spend $5 billion to improve our transit system.
All right. Our second item.
Yeah, so it happened actually that two people in San Diego politics said really interesting things in the last week. Can you believe that? It's amazing. Yeah. So the second
and one of them was Ron Roberts.
Right.
I'm just kidding. Supervisor, that was a joke. We're friends. That was a little joke.
Yeah,
we're
you're
not
great
really friends,
yeah,
but that was just a joke.
Yeah, so maybe less surprising is something provocative said by Assemblywoman Shirley Weber, who's kind of known for making a lot of strong statements like this one. But even for her, this was something that I think all of us found to be almost shocking. So she unveiled this bill last week that seeks to limit the circumstances in which police can legally use deadly force. And so right now the bar is set at they can use deadly force whenever it's objectively reasonable, which has proved to be like such a high bar for prosecutors that police are rarely prosecuted. So she wants to change that by saying that they can only use deadly force in cases where their life is immediately in danger. And also if they did something negligent to contribute to this being a dangerous situation, say you like roll up to a situation with your lights not on, you don't identify yourself as a police officer, things like that might make things dicey, that you wouldn't receive these protections either. So when I talked to her about the bill last week, she said something pretty blunt about the ways in which she thinks that bias affects the way police act in certain communities.
Yeah, this was what really was stunning.
Yeah, she said, our officers do know how to de-escalate and they do know how to use other strategies. They just don't use them in Black communities.
Oof.
So obviously, this comes in the wake of the Stephon Clark shooting, in which it turned out there wasn't an immediate threat to these police officers who didn't have a weapon. But she also pointed to the example of the Parkland mass shooting where that person was taken in peacefully. It was a white young man shooter who carried out this, atrocious crime, and they were somehow able to detain him. So she's saying they do have the skills to, obtain people in some of these situations without resorting to deadly force.
It was just a plain, simple statement that the police are acting in an implicit bias, racist way, right?
Yeah, normally lawmakers do this dance when they're talking about these issues where they express outrage over the specific incident, but they also, kind of bend over backwards or walk on eggshells when it comes to talking about what police did or what they might have done differently. And she just flat out says, when police are in minority communities, they basically shoot first and ask questions later.
And the police heard there was a policeman on Twitter, Jeff Jordan, who used to be involved in the local police union. He said it's the most offensive thing he had ever seen a politician say or heard, and it resonated. Now, look, she's again known for saying things, taking on entrenched issues. She takes on the teachers union all the time. She also, what's interesting about it is as liberal as California really is, it has some of the most strong protections of police confidentiality and just giving them the benefit of the doubt in these situations, right?
Yeah. So there's a great story from Cal Matters this week that kind of digs into the ways in which California protects police that almost no other states do. And another San Diego Police Union person, Brian Marvel, reacted to the Shirley Weber bill in that story. And he said something to the effect of this will ruin the way we respond to incidences. We might stop and run away or something. And I'm thinking so it's a bad thing that a police officer might stop and think about what he's doing and retreat? That was an interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
On the Cal Matters story, it's funny, we go to these national journalism conferences, and whenever there's a session on reporting on police misconduct or anything like that, it's I don't even need to go
All
to that.
All the California reporters leave the room because we can't get any information.
Right.
None of the ways that you did that investigation will matter here. We can't get that information.
All right, so that bill is going to have a tough time going through the legislature, but we'll watch it with the Sacramento Report. All right, Andy.
So Tuesday night, the SEIU, the union that represents thousands of county workers, voted to rejoin the San Diego Imperial County's Labor Council. They had left that organization with that union of unions just over a year ago to join the Working Families Council. The Working Families Council was created at that same time when Mickey Kasparian, who was the former head of the Labor Council and also the head of UFCW, the local grocery workers union, departed. He departed at the same time that he was under fire from lawsuits for sexual misconduct and gender discrimination. And all of this was happening at the same time that there were these fractures developing within the local labor coalition. On one side, you really had this building trades in IBEW, and then on the other side, you had UFCW and SEIU. That was the way it was for most of last year. That ended earlier this year when the Working Families Council, led by Mickey Kasparian, voted to endorse Lori Saldana in her bid for county supervisor. That was a problem because SEIU had previously gone all in on Nathan Fletcher, and because they represent so many county workers, that was really their first priority. And so then you had this coalition, this one side of a coalition that was supporting two different candidates in the same race. They voted last month to leave the Working Families Council, and they voted on Tuesday return to the Labor Council. So really the questions now are, how much money is the Working Families Council and Mickey Kasparian going to put towards Lori Saldana in this race? And also, just how long can the Working Families Council and UFCW last now that they've lost their biggest ally?
Yeah, and it really shows how hard are they going to go in for Lori Saldana, because they've lost their whole coalition, not their whole thing. There's a couple smaller unions, but SEIU and UFCW were the main partners in this new rival coalition in the labor side of things. And now they've lost SEIU. So was it worth it? How much money are they going to put behind Lori Saldana? And how far is this going to go? How much worse is this going to get?
I mean, it's mid-April right now. This election's happening in June, and it's just crazy to take a step back and think about where the left is in this race after how long they have been eyeing this vacancy.
Yeah.
I mean, Ron Roberts has been in this seat since the mid-90s. He's finally termed out. For as long as I've been involved in San Diego politics, Democrats in this city have been talking about when they can take over this seat because it is such a Dem-heavy district. And now they're looking at a scenario where you've got two labor-backed candidates that are potentially just going to tear each other apart between now and June.
Yeah. Our hero of the week.
John David Ross, better known as Waterman Dave, passed away this week at 83 years old. He was a longtime homeless advocate. He's been doing that for about 2 decades. He earned his nickname because he used to use his Social Security income to buy bottles of water that he would then give to people living on the street. And additionally, I think this is a really interesting part of his legacy, is that he has for years been vocally advocating for the need to improve bathrooms and the access to clean potable water for the homeless. And this was years before those issues famously contributed to our hepatitis A crisis. So San Diego will be a lesser city without him.
Yep. Our goat of the week.
You lose! Good day, sir!
All right, this one goes to the San Diego County Sheriff's Department. A story by our contributor Kelly Davis this week explained how the Sheriff's Department is, as a policy, restraining and shackling pregnant inmates during labor, even though there's a state law that says the instances in which that happens should be really rare. And they came back and said, no, just as a blanket policy, we basically restrain everyone. And then in these limited circumstances, we maybe take the restraints off. And it's really supposed to be the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So San Diego's Toni Atkins is the one who actually wrote the law. She said she's really troubled to hear that this is how it's playing out and that she's going to talk to Sheriff Bill Gore about it.
Okay, we have Jen Campbell, who's running for city council, coming up. If you're on the podcast, stay tuned for that. We also have another story to go over, and thank you to all our supporters and partners, especially those who are at News Radio 600 Kogo, who help broadcast this.
The following is a sponsored segment from the ASU GSV Summit. Voice of San Diego is a nonprofit. The majority of our budget comes from grants and donations from readers and listeners like you. But we also rely on corporate and nonprofit sponsors that help us continue to produce more of the quality local journalism you expect from us. We're grateful for all those who invest in news. If you'd like to join them, contact development at VOSD.org. I'm Kinsey Moreland, and I'm here with Laura Zaro, one of the many speakers at this year's ASU GSV Summit. The summit is happening in San Diego this year from April 16th through April 18th, and it's a major annual convention that promotes the importance of innovation and education. It attracts educators, tech entrepreneurs, and investors from across the world. For more information and get your tickets, visit asugsvsummit.com. Laura Zaro is here with me today. She's the host of the award-winning radio show Women at Work, and she's the executive director of Wharton People Analytics, an innovative research center that's leading the development of their groundbreaking work in evidence-based management. Laura, thanks for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Kinsey.
So let's get right into it. What are you talking about at this year's ASU GSV Summit?
I'm going to be talking about how we advance innovation by actually looking at how we develop our teams and engage them in an ongoing process, kind of a system of taking what we've learned about helping women and underrepresented groups join, stay, succeed, and lead in the workplace, and what we know about creative practices, what we learn from the critique process, the way that innovators work, the way that designers work, and bring that into the business environment so that we can create a system for bringing a diverse group onto our teams, helping them engage and thrive, and then really getting all that talent that's in the room to work together to create the new things we all need.
The rest of the interview with Laura Zaro, one of the speakers at this year's ASU GSV Summit, will be at the end of the show. Stick around.
We are back. Hello, folks. No personal stories. I got no jokes. Sorry. I don't leave you hanging. I know you love my jokes.
Fine.
Better that way. One other story we wanted to go over. So we talked about LA building all this stuff. One of the things that San Diego is building is pretty innovative, pretty big. This week, the city council gave final approval to the environmental impact report that they're trying to do to build a whole recycling system for wastewater and to make it a potable source of our own water. And it would eventually provide up to 1/3 of San Diego's water. The city of San Diego's water would come from this effort. So this is kind of in conjunction with, basically, we don't treat our wastewater to the same standard that other cities do. We do a first primary treatment, and then we send it out a couple miles into the ocean. Right. And for years, we've had a permit, a sort of waiver from the Environmental Protection Agency to keep doing that. And one way that, and we were going to face this lawsuit from some environmentalists, say that you need to treat it the secondary standard. And to avoid that lawsuit and to handle the EPA waiver and all that stuff, this is the whole big shebang. And it also provides drinking water that we need and sort of provide this long-term water independence. So it's a big deal to get that EIR done, right, Andy?
It is. Okay,
phase 1 of the pipeline will go from the Morena neighborhood to the Miramar Reservoir. This is from KPBS's reporting. And after passing through those facilities along the way, water will be piped into the Miramar Reservoir, where it will blend with reservoir water there and receive another round of treatment and then go to our taps. So this is a big deal and a big project and a lot of money. It came on the same day that the Metropolitan Water District, the giant agency based in LA, agreed to spend $11 billion. That's $11 billion. It's a lot.
Quite a chunk of change
on a water tunnel plan. So basically, the project is a pair of 35-mile underground tunnels to keep water flowing south through the Sacramento-San Joaquin Bay Delta, and a series of waterways and wetlands fed by snow melting in the Sierra Nevada. So that whole area is very sensitive, and this is kind of an old deal. So basically, this is from Rai Rivard's story on our site. California decided long ago to dam and divert rivers in Northern California to provide water for farmers in cities around San Francisco Bay. That destroyed those rivers, as he pointed out. But then I love how he puts things, by the way. But it made possible agriculture, industry, and human prosperity.
It's just beautiful,
it's
Rai.
I love Rai. The governor's late father, Governor Pat Brown, created the State Water Project, but it was never truly finished. And this is part of that. The canal was supposed to go around the environmentally sensitive delta, and that peripheral canal was never built. And this is kind of the new version of that, these two tunnels. Now, there was an idea to do one tunnel, and they settled on the two.
Yeah, so I think Rai did a great job breaking this story down. And one thing that he pointed out is that we're spending $11 billion, and there's actually no guarantee that we're going to get more water. It's just sort of like an insurance policy that we don't get any less water than we would if we didn't build these. So that's a really big investment for maybe no more water than we have now.
Yeah, and also interesting about this, so the Metropolitan Water District Board of Directors is made up of, like, San Diego representatives and LA representatives and all the, like, Beverly Hills and
Ventura, all of Southern California.
Yeah, so they all sit on this board and they decide all these things. And very interestingly, the two biggest cities on that board, San Diego and Los Angeles.
Two biggest cities in California.
Yes, they voted against, or they opposed this whole deal. And so the fact that they were able to get this done without San Diego and LA is huge.
Yeah, and just recently, the whole conversation at Metropolitan had been, should we spend $4 billion to maybe build one of these tunnels? And then really quickly, it seemed like the decision suddenly became, we'll just spend $11 billion and build both.
Yeah.
Which is a big leap.
It's a big leap. And so you may be asking, what does this matter to me? Two reasons this matters. One is the bigger issue of water independence. Will this make sure we have water? That's an important thing for civilization. Right, Andy?
Yes.
Love this. And the second issue is it might cost some money. So the Metropolitan staff estimated that the water bill in Southern California, average water bill will go up by $4.80, but the San Diego County Water Authority said that estimate doesn't tell the whole story. It could be as much as 60 cents a month or $23 a month. I'd feel $23 a month.
Yeah.
$23 a month would be too much.
Is $23 a month a big deal, Andy?
It is.
Yeah, so pay attention to this.
It's a good bit.
Rye Rivard has been doing some great reporting. I think he makes the site smarter. It's good. The Voice of San Diego is smarter with Rye Rivard's reporting on the energy and environmental and water issues. Check that out. Right now, some of those issues come up and others with our interview with Jen Campbell, running for City Council. Okay, we are joined in the great Voice of San Diego podcast studio, broadcasting not live from downtown San Diego, with Dr. Jen Campbell. She is a candidate for District 2, my district. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we've met a couple of times, I think, at different community events, but tell us about your background. You are a doctor, medical doctor. That's why journalists refer to medical doctors with the actual doctor preface. Sometimes, right?
Consult your style book.
That's right. So you are a medical doctor.
Yes, that's correct. 37 years.
What was your practice?
Family medicine's my specialty, and I'm also boarded in holistic medicine and acupuncture.
I got something can you look at a little later after? Do you get that a lot?
Didn't bring my needles.
Okay.
Inappropriate.
Sorry. All right. So what made you want to run for?
No, not even any commitment to the joke. Just like, I got a thing. Have you ever heard that joke before? Like you wouldn't even go all the way there.
Well, you guys had the disgusted look on your face. I could
see where it was going.
All right. So what made you want to run for city council?
This is the first time I've ever run for office, but I come from a politically active family, so I grew up interested in activism, interested in government and how it works. But science was my thing, and I wanted to serve the people by being a doctor. And so I went into medicine in my 20s, actually, after I had my children.
Really?
Yeah, they were in grade school when I got into medical school.
Wow.
And they were wonderful. They never got sick unless I was on school break.
So you did med school in like the 70s?
That's right.
And with 2 kids?
That's right.
And 2 young kids?
Well, they were in grade school.
And your husband was working too?
My husband was working. In the first year of med school, I became a single mother.
Whoa. Oh, wow. You pulled quite a load.
Actually, it was a little easier after we split.
Okay. Good one. Okay. Well, that's very impressive. And you enjoyed being a doctor?
I loved it. Every day I looked forward to going to work. It was wonderful.
What are the biggest issues you want to tackle at District 2?
Well, I've been very active in the community since I moved to San Diego about 14 years ago, and I've been active on the Claremont Town Council Executive Board and other things. And I've heard from the people. I've also been walking and knocking on doors for months now, and it's very interesting to ask the people in District 2 what are the issues topmost on your mind, and there are about 6 really big ones. They mention homelessness a lot, housing affordability, and short-term vacation rentals. Those are the big 3 for District 2.
And what would you do about those?
Well, homelessness, luckily we have a wonderful plan that's been tried in other cities successfully that we can follow called Housing First and Wraparound Services. And the way that works is that all of the providers for the homeless unite and also unite the budgets and get together and figure out a plan. So the city and the county would look at housing, what's available, what can be remodeled, what can be used to house the homeless. Is really the answer to homelessness is in the title. They need a home. So even if it's a small unit, like maybe a studio-sized apartment or less, with a lock and a key so they can have their own space and their own bed and feel that they're safe at night, they can put their things in there and lock them and know they're not going to get stolen. And if this is in a place such as maybe a building where there are others like themselves, we have the wraparound services present there, and then they can avail themselves of the services. And this has worked 90% in other cities that have done it, keeping the homeless from becoming homeless again. They become permanently housed and permanently, many of them, contributing members of society again.
So the city of San Diego has ostensibly been committed to a homelessness first strategy for few years now. There's been
Housing first.
housing first strategy for a few years now, and a lot of the specific actions that the city has taken have been arguably not consistent with that vision, or some people have argued that they're not consistent with that vision. What is it that the city has failed to do to commit to that idea, or what is it that you would like to do to make the city more consistently pushing towards this idea of a housing first model?
Well, I think it's been what you said in the first place, that they've been committed to homelessness for years.
Yeah.
It's been about 30 years that the head has been in the sand and the problem has really been ignored quite a bit, except by those organizations trying to help. But in the last 6 to 9 months, the county has brought in Gordon Walker, who was the head of housing for the state of Utah and worked for 10 years on their Housing First program. And so that is very good, because now we have a leader who has a lot of experience and did an excellent job in this field. I've gotten a chance to talk with him several times, and I've read about their program. Also, Houston has done a wonderful program. And the mayor of Houston was Denise Parker, whom I know, and she was recently here in town and gave a seminar on what they had done in Houston. And actually, they went up to Utah and kind of followed Utah's pattern. So it works whether it's a big city like Houston or a state that wanted to do it on a statewide basis. So here in San Diego, we want to do it on a county and city basis. And we have several cities here. We want to include them. We want to get everybody together and united on this.
One thing that I've heard people bring up Houston and Utah a lot, and I think a lot of people in San Diego have said, they don't have the housing crisis that we have, and we need to acknowledge that our situation is different. Do you think that it's realistic to commit fully to housing first when we just don't have housing for everyone right at this moment?
That's a really good question. I think we need to commit to solving the problems that have been ignored for a long time all at once. And I know it sounds difficult, but I really think we can do it. As you mentioned, affordable housing is a big part of the problem. Short-term vacation rentals are also something that's been let go and not regulated. And that, as you guys reported this morning on Voice of San Diego, countywide, 5% of our housing is not being utilized because of either sitting empty, waiting for short-term vacation rentals to fill it up, or just as second homes that aren't used. And, 5% doesn't sound too bad for the whole county, but you guys nicely broke it down city by city and area by area. And here in San Diego City, we're much, much worse off than the rest of the county. We had, I believe your numbers were almost 26,000 empty spaces or whole home short-term rentals. So there's a difference between the short-term vacation rental where the owner is present and the whole home short-term vacation rental.
I want to talk about vacation rentals, but before we get to that, so the at the heart of that argument is the number of places available to live in and rent or buy, right?
That's right.
And so do you think that number of total dwelling units needs to go up in the city?
Oh, the total number of dwelling units definitely needs to go up in the city. We're way behind what we need.
Where in District 2 can more dwelling units go?
Well, in District 2, we are developing the trolley lines being developed, $2 billion project going through the Marina Corridor in District 2 on its way up to UCSD and the VA Medical Center, UTC Shopping Center.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important that we develop the city around these busy transit centers in such a way that we take into account the fact that people who live near transit centers are more prone to use them constantly and less prone to drive. And so then this falls into our climate action plan, which helps us to clean the atmosphere of carbon emissions. So all of these things are interconnected, and the city can't afford to ignore them. We need to work on everything.
So the neighbors in those areas where the stations, particularly the stations in District 2 at the the hinge between Linda Vista and Bay Park at the Tecolote Drive Station and the Claremont Drive Station have been quite opposed to the idea of significantly changing the zoning and regulations that allow housing that would accommodate the type of housing you're talking about there. How do you deal with that opposition if, in fact, that's a suitable place to put more houses?
I think those people have a bad rap. They're really very, very good people, and they want to make sure that the character of their neighborhood remains the same. However, they all agree that the Marina Corridor is no beauty spot and it needs to be upgraded. And they would love to see it used as a community center, a place where there's shops and restaurants, apartments or condos, places where people can live and walk to the trolley, get on, go to work, come home, maybe grab a meal at a restaurant right underneath where they live. And I think those people are open-minded enough to realize that this could be a beautification project and that this could be a great opportunity to actually make Bay Park even more beautiful. And so I just think it's a matter of leadership, a matter of including in the process the citizens of the area, hearing their ideas about what they want, and trying to bring them into the fold and into the process.
So do you think they could, given the appropriate process, get on board with, pretty dense housing? I think to really make use of the investment there, you're talking 4 or 5 stories of building, potentially 50 units per acre. Could people in that neighborhood really get on board with that?
I think that's way beyond what the neighborhood is zoned for at this time, and they have a 30-foot limit on height.
So we can't change the height limit?
Well, it's part of the law at this point.
But there's a community plan update process that is the process by which the law changes. So
yeah, the 30-foot. There's the 30-foot coastal height limit, but that doesn't apply to that.
Yeah, that's not the end of the coastal. That's not in the coastal zone. So this is the community plan's height limit, and there's a process going on right now to change that. So are you saying that the terms of that discussion should acknowledge that the height limit that exists today should be protected, and if whatever zoning or development changes do occur, they can't be completely very drastic from what's in the plan today?
I think that if developers wish to have the height limit raised, they are going to have to convince the people whose views are not going to be blocked that their views are not going to be blocked. Mm-hmm. I think they have to realize that these people bought these homes expecting to have water views, and they're going to fight to keep their views. So they have to take that into account. When they present these plans to people, they can see what kind of reaction they get.
So is that compatible, though? The idea that people bought their homes with a certain understanding of what their neighborhood is, and they deserve to have an opportunity to defend that existing character, and the idea that with a $2 billion trolley line, that's the appropriate place to accommodate the region's needed housing. Are those two ideas in conflict?
I don't think so. I think we can make compromises, and we can discuss, and we can plan. We have many 3-story buildings there now, many condos and apartment houses, and they fit right in. So I really don't see it as a problem. There are a lot of places along that corridor such as Toys R Us, mm-hmm. that are not going to be Toys R Us anymore, yeah. And that can be utilized. There's lots of large spaces that can be utilized for housing.
Do you think that could go higher there?
I don't know. We'd have to see what the plans are. The people would have to be included in the process.
Okay. One other area that we've done some reporting on is it looks like the city is marching towards redevelopment of the sports arena area. The city owns tremendous swaths of land over there, not just the arena and the parking lot. And if everything times out right, they could have a complete new master builder put in an arena, but also housing is also projected. What are you thinking about that? Is that a good place also for homes? The 30-foot height limit, something you would want to enforce hard there? What are your thoughts on principles for that development?
Yeah, the Midway District, where the sports arena is, and the area around it, And the old post office is over there also. That's also in District 2. I think it's a different situation than the Marina Corridor. The sports arena itself is already 75 feet high.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the plan of having mixed use there is an excellent idea. And I think we're going to desperately need to have either trolley line extension there or buses branching off from the trolleys to there. You know how rough it is to get on Rosecrans, and the people over there tell me a big headache for them is the traffic situation. So we really need to address that. And that's one of the wonderful things about mass transit is that it can really help relieve the traffic congestion if it's done properly.
So would you support maybe a new arena there at 70 foot too? I mean, is 70 foot something we could do over there?
Well, I think it's already been done,
Mm-hmm.
and it hasn't gotten in the way.
Yeah.
And I think it's a totally different situation than Bay Park.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Before we shift to something else, so I want to give you an opportunity to respond. Your opponent, Brian Pease, a few months ago shared a clip from a town hall where you were speaking at.
Big blue wave's coming. Big blue wave. We're going to take over that city council. If we win District 2, I'll be the 6th seat. That means we can override the mayor's vetoes. Or we can make that mayor do his job. He's sitting there doing nothing. Doesn't enforce the laws. Nothing. You see all those panhandlers on the corners? They're probably not even homeless. They're just pretending they are. They're begging. Do they have a license? I doubt it. In this city, they have to have a license. Is anybody checking that? No. We don't have enough police.
So I want to give you, I know you mentioned that you regretted that saying it that way and that you thought you were taken out of context. So I'll let you respond at length here. But in general, do you think that a lot of the very visible street homeless are in some way not actually homeless? Like that there's a fake homelessness epidemic in the city?
I really don't know the numbers. I think it's probably a very small amount.
Mm-hmm.
That was a mistake. In Utah, they found that they had that problem. And so I had researched and taken that from Utah's example. It doesn't fit in San Diego. So that was a big mistake. It was incorrect. It was a rookie problem at that moment. And the rest of the 10 minutes was excellent.
Okay. So there's a lot. Let's talk about vacation rentals for a second. It's a hot button issue. Are you in support of an outright ban of vacation rentals for whole homes?
Oh, for whole homes, possibly. I think we need to compromise. Obviously, the city council's deadlocked. At least they were on December 12th. And the situation, I think, talking to the voters in District 2, and we have more short-term vacation rentals than anywhere else in the city, thousands of them. And I think the problem that our residents see is that if you own your home and you live in it and you wish to share it, that should be okay. Probably 90% of our voters see nothing wrong with that. It's the problem when the owner is not even in town, much less living in the place, and they rent it out to many, many, many people at one time rather than one or two, which is completely allowed within code. And they, it just becomes a mess sometimes because there's no regulation, there's no permitting, there's nowhere for the neighbors who live next to the place that's causing problems to do anything about it. Here you bought a house in a single-family neighborhood, and you're having to put up with a hotel next door. It's not right. So I think we have to look at that. We have to try and preserve our neighborhoods, preserve our zoning, and be fair also, because this is a new society. This is a new way of taking a vacation, and it's not going to go away. And San Diego's a great vacation destination. So I think we have to look at all the sides and come up with a compromise that'll work.
There was a compromise on the table that Barbara Bree and Chris Ward had been working on in that marathon meeting that would involve minimum nights stay regulation of them, and it would limit. It was the one they were coming close to was it would limit the number of vacation rentals that one owner could deploy, and it would actually limit them within certain geographic area, but that it all sort of fell apart. But basically, she was starting to get to the point where she could accept this process of minimum 3-night stay and a regulatory system that funded an enforcement effort and limited the number of properties that one investor could hold. Is that something you could get behind?
Yes, that sounds like it's a real possibility.
Okay.
Interesting. Have you been keeping up with where that stands right now? We were promised something by, I think, what was it?
Now?
It was now.
Imagine that.
It seems not to have happened. Have you been talking to people? Where do things stand as far as you know?
I heard that after the December 12th meeting, when nothing was decided, the mayor decided that he would look at the issue and take into account everything and come out with a plan, which I thought he was going to announce this week. But so far we haven't heard it.
Yeah. So I wrote a story a couple weeks ago about something that I know a lot of folks on the coast care about a lot. I know because they call and tell me all the time, and they email me as well. And so I finally dug into it and I wrote about it. It was the idea of coastal remodels and what some neighbors have dubbed mansionization. Is this something that's on your radar? Is this a problem that the city council should get involved in? The idea of people have the city code has created this sort of workaround loophole that allows property owners to not follow the requirement for a coastal development permit to essentially rebuild a home from scratch, to build a large dream home that's much bigger than, maybe you have a 1-story bungalow on a little property. You can kind of very quickly get a permit to build a significantly bigger home that utilizes the full allowable square footage, while technically calling it a remodel, but I think everyone kind of acknowledges that it's not a remodel. Is this something that the city council should be involved in?
I think the city division that takes care of building permits and codes and
development services,
I think they need to take a look at the law and see if it's outdated, as we very well may need to fix the law so that people don't feel that they have to go around the coastal rules. And we need to make things more efficient so that, because I read in your article that the people have to wait sometimes years if they have to go through the coastal process.
Right.
And this is a problem that also hits our lack of affordable housing. A developer was telling me I bought a piece of land, went in for all the plans and permits and everything, and the least he could expect was 2 years before he could even put a shovel in the ground.
Yep.
And I know some that have waited 10 years. And, it's just, that's silly. We need the housing now. And we need to take care of these things now. And we need to streamline the process.
Lori Zapp, we had her in a few weeks ago. Good conversation. She had a lot of thoughts about public safety and such. What's your main complaint about how she's managed her role representing the district?
Oh, I have several. And I must say I haven't done as much research on this as I'd like to. But she's already been in 2 terms. So first of all, we have a rule that you have 2 terms and you're done. We have term limits. We voted for that. She's running for a 3rd term. Through a loophole Lori. So I totally disagree with that. I believe when you have 2 terms, your time's up. It's time for a change. So that's one thing. She has oftentimes been absent or tardy, and oftentimes not been present on votes that are of importance. And she has been the chair of the housing committee for 3 years and never did a thing about the short-term rentals, which was part of that committee's purview. Constituents tell me they call the office or they send an email or a letter and they don't get a response. Or they get a response that's automatic through the email that says, we're really busy, we'll get back to you, and they never get back to them. We have the example of the lady who was killed at Longfellow School, an elementary school in Bay Park, where for 5 years at least, the citizens complained to the city and to Lori's office that intersection was so dangerous. And it really is. There's 5 roads that coalesce right there at the corner of the school. and they needed to check it. The city should have gone and put some measures in to make it more safe, and they didn't. Lori's office obviously didn't push them to do that. And so this woman was walking the last day of school. Her name was Jennifer Jones, and she went to pick up her 2 sons who go to Longfellow. And she got run over by a truck in that intersection and killed. And so now if you go over to that corner, you'll see a few stop signs and some paint where they have crosswalks. But it's still a pretty rough area when you're driving. You have to be really careful because of the 5 lanes that come together there. But at least they did something. Way too late. The other day I was walking, knocking on doors over there, and a gentleman told me, it's been 15 years we've been complaining about that corner and the traffic situation, how unsafe it is, and it's right at an elementary school. So, I think constituent services, responding to the citizens, that's the role of government. Government is of the people, for the people, by the people. And to ignore the people is completely not the way government should work. We're there to help the people. We're there to provide service. And that's why I got into it. I've always been someone who believed in helping people. That's why I went into medicine. And I just saw things were being ignored in the city and not taken care of. Everything, the homelessness, the infrastructure, the affordable housing. There are a lot of problems that we need to solve. And I thought maybe if I get on city council, I can be of help. I have no further political ambition. I've had a great life. I have a wonderful family. I have lots of children in it. And I don't have to take care of them anymore because I'm the grandma role. So I get to just have the fun time with them.
That sounds nice.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
How old are your kids now?
Well, my own children are 48 and 51.
And their kids are?
And their kids, the oldest grandchild is 32. She just turned 32. She has 2 little sons, 1 year old and 2 years old.
Wow.
And then down the street from us, one of our daughters has 2 little kids, 1 year old and 3 year old. But all the other grandchildren are either in college or just out of college. One of my other granddaughters got married in January. So it's, they're mostly grown-ups, but it goes from age 1 to age 32. Jeez. So it's pretty much fun. Yeah. It really is.
Let me ask you a couple of, before I let you go, citywide issues that people are going to grapple with. One is there's a proposal to raise the hotel room tax so that we can expand the convention center and fund homeless services. You in?
Well, let me just say that I haven't looked at all the details yet, but it sounds good. It's much better than the proposal the mayor put last year that didn't make it to the ballot and people didn't like.
What was the improvement there that you latch on to?
Well, I think people are very interested in making sure that funding is going to house the homeless. We need to house the homeless. That's a big thing. And so this new proposal with the TOT makes it possible not only to improve the city with infrastructure and the convention center, but half that money almost is going to go toward helping to house the homeless. So I think it's very important. I think it's a good idea. It's really lovely that a coalition of labor, business, and the mayor's office came together and thought of this. And I think that's really good. This is an example of how we need to work together. It doesn't matter our party. What matters is that we put the good of the city ahead of everything else. And that's how we should base our decisions, not on politics, but on what's best for the people. And so I thought that was a much better proposal than previously. I don't know if it'll pass. It's going to be on the ballot in November. And then also we have the bond issue that's going to be on the ballot. So that would provide $900,000 to house the homeless.
900 million, I think.
I'm sorry, 900 million. I said 1,000.
900,000 would go quick.
Yeah, 900 million will go quick too.
Lastly, Soccer City or SDSU West?
Well, we only have those 2 choices at the moment.
Yeah,
it might be nice to have another one.
You say no. You could say no to either. And,
yeah,
and
neither is a perfectly reasonable choice.
Well, I would be very, very happy to see us be able to expand our academic footprint. I think that's really important, and I think the city has to be very careful to make sure it doesn't give things away, whichever side it is that people decide they want, if it's any of those two. And we just have to make sure that they are involving the public and the government in the total process all the way along. We have to protect the public's interest. And that's what the city government is for. That's what we should be doing.
All right, Jen Campbell, she's a candidate for City Council. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Voices San Diego podcasts. This show is part of the Voices San Diego podcast network. Visit voiceofsandiego.org/podcasts. There you'll learn more about our award-winning arts and education podcast, CultureCast and Good Schools for All, the Cura Chaos podcast about movers and shakers on both sides of the border, Beer Talk Radio, our business show, I Made It in San Diego, our sports show, The Kept Faith, and the rest of the shows in the network. Voices San Diego is a nonprofit. The majority of our budget comes from grants and donations from readers and listeners like you. If you like the show, please take a minute to go to voicessandiego.org and click the donate button. Or if you have a business and would like to sponsor the show, contact development@voicessandiego.org or call 619-550-5664.